Hey guys, it's been a while since I've given you any updates on the SleeperGTP. I just had a lot going on. Ended up moving to North Carolina to actually be closer to my daughter. She's about 3.5 years old now. It was time to get down here. Life just kind of took her mother on a different path, and things just ended up being kind of hard over the past few years without her. So had to make sacrifices and do what I could to get down here for her sake. That's one of the main parts of being a dad is doing whatever it takes to give your child the best life that they can have. So that's kind of what I decided to do, more or less on a moment's notice. And like I say, it's the best decision I've ever made. So the Miata is now gone. I ended up selling that to help go towards getting the move done. Obviously the shop's closed down. I mean, it was a dream that I'd always had, but it can happen another day. I'm still young. There's still things that can change, and I just had more important things to worry about. So I didn't get rid of the Grand Prix though, obviously. So I wanted to follow through and get that project done. The Miata, I had it basically done at one point. I mean, if you want to call it that. It was running and driving, and got it down the road. Ended up breaking the rear end in it. It was just the stock 1.6 rear end that came in the car. So tore it apart. Was going to put a 9-inch in it, or sorry, an 8.8 IRS, independent rear suspension setup in it, and just never got around to it. And it just kind of sat around. I got a short stack intercooler for the 3800, a belt wrap, just other random parts. Tore the engine apart, and just once again never got back to actually putting it together. So it sat in the back of my shop pretty much the whole time that I did that. And I just figured it was time to let it go, to move on, so that way I could focus more on the Grand Prix, because it was going to be a lot more fun anyways. The main point of the build on that car is to be a no prep drag car, small tire, nothing too crazy. Hopefully eventually I get into some higher horsepower, but the fab work may not be 100%. There's probably guys out there that want to sit there and critique that, but the thing about it is, and I like to say this a lot, is you got to do it once to do it again. And this will be the worst one I ever do, because I got to do something to learn. I've applied a lot of the things that I've learned over the years, doing my Beretta, doing my green Grand Prix, the stuff that I did with this car, the Miata, the Trans Am, pretty much everything I've ever done kind of goes into this, so that's why, I'm just trying to get it done, make it happen, get it together, get it down the road, do some testing and see, did I do this right? Is this going to hold up? And learn it that way, get hands-on with it and apply myself to making something like that happen. So anyways, that's just kind of the update on my life in general. I'm all kind of settled in down here. Still got some junk laying around from moving, but and cleaning out this garage, because it was an absolute disaster. But for the most part, I'm settling in pretty good. So anyways, here's the car. Got her up here on jack stands, sitting outside. That's just because the garage is just half of it's gravel, the other half is concrete. So the Feretta's sitting on the concrete side of things, and there's just not enough room to work on this in the garage with the Feretta in there. So I just wanted to kind of give an in-depth look at what all is going on with the car. So far I'm down to needing fuel lines, and then I got to mount the fuel cell. Sorry about that. Mount the fuel cell. I'm not good at editing, so that's staying in the video. But I got to mount the fuel cell down in the trunk, so I got to weld some straps, and then from there I'll be able to run the fuel lines. I got to get a fuel filter for it. I'm just going to do hard line in the center, and then do steel braided back up to the pump, well, the tank, It's got an inline pump is what it's going to be, and then up there at the engine bay. So just to try to save on cost, you know, still working on a low budget on this car. It's not like I have just, you know, infinite amount of money to be able to throw at this thing. It's just kind of here and there and whatever I can make happen. Most of the progress that's happened is mainly because of selling parts off of the old build from when Greg Wright had originally built it. So all the 3.8 turbo parts and the 5-speed conversion, suspension parts, anything that I didn't need, you know, out the door, get it sold so that way I can get the money to get the parts that I need to do this. So I don't know, I'm pretty sure that I'd said it in the other videos. It's now a 6-liter LS, so it's the, I think it's the LQ4 from a truck. It's a 2003 2500 that it came out of with the 4L80E and then the Ford 9-inch in the back. The rear suspension's configured like a Fox body Mustang, width and everything. I wanted to do that width because I wanted to be able to have a good amount of playroom as far as my wheel offset goes. I want that dished look in the back, but I didn't want it to be over the top, too narrow. You know, it's already kind of hard to find wheels for this setup, considering that it's kind of off the wall. So cheap wheels, let me put it that way, because you can get, I want Weld S71s, but being able to get those is just is just outrageous. I mean, you're talking $800 per front wheel, and then the bead locking S71s that just look badass, like $1,200 a wheel. So that's just not realistic at this point. So it's just rocking some Steelies that came off of an Impala, you know, just for the time being to roll around. So anyhow, I got to do brake lines also, power steering lines. I got to hook the brake pedal up to the Mustang master cylinder still. I pretty much got all the wiring done, other than doing like the fuel level sending unit and then the turn-on wire for the fuel pump for my relay in the back, because it's got the upgraded wiring for the fuel pump from the 3800 build. So I still got to do a trunk floor. I'm going to wait on that because I am going to get little trailer fenders or whatever I can, you know, get to work in the back to do kind of like a mini tub to give me a little bit more back space, you know, in my wheel well. Because right now, just with the Grand Prix ones and the way that the rear end is, you know, you've got to be just right on the wheels to be able to get it to fit. And that's kind of given me issues with, you know, fitting a DOT approved street radial. And it's, you know, I want to get as much meat as I can on the tires, and to let the wheel arches after doing this much work interfere with that, it's not something I really want to do. But at the same time, though, I do want to get it down the road, get it to the track. I mean, it's going to be just an NA at first, stock 6.0, so it's not like it's going to have a whole lot of power. So I'm going to run the Steelies more than likely, just with some decent tires on them, and worry about doing that mini tub later. So get the straps in there and get the tank in, and then I will be able to go back to the wheel arches. And there is a little bit of rust on here. You know, it's been outside. It used to be in the garage, but obviously I don't really have the setup for that anymore. So it kind of sucks that I'm having to deal with that, but I'm going to go back through later on, tear down the car, and then paint all this up and make it look nice. I just want to make sure everything's going to hold up first before I get into painting things, because I'd hate to put in all the effort of painting something and then I have a weld crack that I need to attend to. So, you know, I'm doing everything I can to not have that happen. It's not like I'm really expecting that, but I am definitely going to be prepared for something kind of dumb like that to happen. I'm going to put some gussets in the frame rail area here to be able to get it, you know, right in this area underneath this bar and on that area there, just to give it a little bit more strength as far as that goes. Because if I had the stuff to do it, it would have been a nice, you know, frame rail, but this is just cheap and effective. I got to put some sort of plate right there to, you know, or like a gusset type of deal to get that area filled in. And then on the top of these here, there's going to be plates to strengthen those up that'll actually run all the way up to the front area there. So there's still a couple little things to be done here. This would hold up for a nice NA, you know, street drive, but you know, I definitely want to do those things just to be able to give it that extra strength for launching and whatnot. And I got the straps just sitting in here. I mean, they're not even welded on. I mean, just little tacks. It just so happens that right when I put those in, the welder had screwed up on me, so I couldn't finish that off. So this will actually be open for the first you know, little while of the car being up and going. So not too big of a deal. But I figured out the oil pan. Ended up using a Jegs, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Jegs street strip oil pan. Got it off Facebook Marketplace. There was a guy that he had bought, I think, an LS3, and it came with it, and he didn't need it. So the pan was just right on the depth, but the actual sump area needed to be cut back a little bit and modified to be able to clear my K-member. So the K-member was already dented for an aluminum pan setup, but just didn't pan out, no pun intended. But you know, maybe I'll go back through and clean that up, but it's really not too big of a deal. It doesn't affect the structural integrity of it as far as I'm concerned. So it's ugly, but like I said, do it once to do it again. So something like that, just got to kind of get past it and then worry about getting it on the road. So so that's all figured out, and it came with a pickup tube, and that all worked perfectly. So that's all in there and ready to go. I just need to get an oil filter relocation kit, and then the oil system will be good enough for now. I want to add in an oil cooler later on just for a little bit more capacity, but even with the cut pan, I'm still already sitting, you know, just right at 5 quarts in just the pan. That's not including the lines and oil filter for the oil filter relocation kit. So that won't be too bad. As far as like the interior goes, I still need to get a steering wheel hub, but you know, I just got one bolt on there just to kind of see what it looked like, and if I was going to like that steering wheel, because it's a change from the original setup. The power windows are all working. I still need to get a shifter also. I'm debating on whether or not I want to put a radio in. I got the gauges working here up on the pillar, and then the gauge cluster face is actually from my old green car. So I decided to put that in here for the you know, nostalgia of it. And I scraped off the back and modified it to be able to do the blue lights. So that kind of turned out, you know, pretty well. It's a little bit different because I think that's an aftermarket gauge face. So on the regular Grand Prix ones, normally you would just scrape off the red film and you'd have the white still there and it'd be good to go. Well, on this, it was white film, then red, and then it would be clear where the actual members are for the light to go through. So obviously that's not going to work because the clear just lets the light go straight through it. It's not going to distribute it, you know, across the whole image. So just a quick spritz of white paint solved that. Looks great. You know, I got one bulb out, but you can't really tell. It still goes pretty nice and even as far as light distribution goes. So you know, the cage is all painted up. I'm not sure if that was already like that in the last video. It's getting worn through right here where the door's rubbing, but I'm not really concerned about that. I need to get seat belts still also. The fire extinguisher is all in place. The sunroof works. The headliner's all in there. I'll go ahead and put some power to it so we can see the lights on the outside of the car. I got turn signals, brake light, everything like that. So that's all working great. Headlights turning on. Tail lights are all good. License plate light, you know, that's all good to go. So and if we turn the key on, service engine soon light's on. That means our PCM is firing up and good to go. I actually already read the tune off of it, so that way I could modify it for the drive-by-wire to drive-by-cable conversion. I already modified the harness to be able to do that. Auto windows all working. The mirrors, they don't work. I wasn't really concerned about that, and the door locks don't work either because, once again, not really concerned. I mean, I can always go back in and add that in later on. That's kind of creature comforts. Needed to have the windows because, especially at like the drag strip or anything like that, gonna want to roll the windows down. So go around over to the other side. Greg and his buddies that were building this car originally had put the fuse block under the airbag cover. So I wanted to stick with that same setup because, I mean, that's just sick. I mean, you know, in your mind when you see that, okay, there's an airbag underneath there. But then all you got to do is walk up, you pull that off, and there's your fuse block. And then I went ahead and put the DLC right here, just for the fact that on data logging and things like that at the drag strip, you don't want the wire, at least I don't want the wire running across my legs or over the steering column whenever I'm doing that. Like, yeah, running over the steering column gets out of your way, but you still have it in the way of your shifter and the fire extinguisher, and it's just a tangled up mess when you could just have it hanging right here, have your laptop sitting on the passenger seat or in somebody's lap or whatever, and be good to go. So, and then the glove box already didn't really have any functionality with that being there anyways, so the PCM is just right there. I use brackets I just had laying around. You know, maybe it's not the prettiest, but hey, it works, and it's all good to go. So easy access for that. You just, if you need to replace the PCM for any reason, you just pop it out right there and you're good to go. So this all works as far as, the starter relay. You hear it clicking on right there. It should work just like the 2003 truck, where you just flick the key and it continues cranking over, and it'll go until it starts. So that's actually a 2001 truck fuse block. I didn't have the 2003 one. I was already in the middle of getting everything done, so I went ahead and just repinned the engine bay wiring harness to work with that fuse block. So 2003 harness with a 2001 fuse block tied in with the 2002 Grand Prix dash. So basically for that, I just pulled apart the original dash harness and took out the wire links, and that's what that mess is right here. And just kind of made it so that way I didn't have to get a whole big roll of wire and run my own runs and all this. I just used what was already there, and just cut out everything I didn't need and completely ran my own new harness for that. So the SD hood clears the engine. You can see, well, my light is actually shining back through here, so you can see that it's just barely over top of that intake manifold, but it's got the truck intake manifold, and you can't see it, but the truck alternator is right here in this area, and it just so happens to fit in that scoop of the SD hood. So I lucked out there, because if that was just a factory hood, it probably wasn't going to clear. So let me open this up real fast.